soaring through the night sky, letting out a blood-curdling scream with a flash of dark leathery wings and an ape-like figure with razor-sharp talons. Meet the Ahool. Is the massive ape-like flying creature the stuff of legends, or is it rooted in reality? Is the Ahool a relative of the extinct pterodactyl, or even more intimidating, is it the inspiration for ancient Mesoamerican mythology? Welcome to another episode of the Cabinet of Dr. Mystery. I am your host, Dr. Mystery.
I tried to create living zombies.
Reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
All I got to do is relax, and they'll take me to their death.
Last chance to evacuate Earth before it is recycled.
This is a wicked, wicked world.
We are all evil in some form or another.
Hello, Mysterians. Welcome to another episode of the Cabinet of Dr. Mystery. Today, we're joined by...
My name is Hassan. I am one-third of the Nerd Alternative podcast, a Black British podcast talking about the good, the bad, the ugly in all the things that we love in pop culture. So each week we'll dissect a cult classic movie, something new, something old, some games, some books, some manga, teach ourselves, learn ourselves, and just find something to have some fun with. That's our whole bag.
Awesome. I saw you were doing some video game reviews. What kind of... Did you just do video game reviews or tabletop as well, or all-encompassing?
Yeah, so for now, I've only been doing video games because mainly I do love playing video games, and it's one of those things where I have like a knowledge about, so it felt like the most natural kind of like leap-off point for me to start writing, and it was the thing that I felt most comfortable and kind of confident writing about, so that's kind of how I jumped into writing short reviews each week on our Twitter. Come check out our Twitter on the Nerd Alternative. It's pretty cool. I think so.
So what got you into podcasting?
So that was a funny one as well. One of the podcast hosts with us, Ram, we used to work together. And when she left, she asked me, would you be down to doing something like this? And at the time I was like, no. Like, I'm hella nervous and like kind of anxious. Like I'm going to be like weird on like an audio medium. But as soon as we started doing it, I felt instantly like I love doing it, and I definitely want to do more.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it too. I think I don't know, it's there's good and bad aspects to audio only production, right? Because you don't have to worry about what your hair looks like.
Mate, you see how much hair is here too, right?
That's why I put the hat on. I've been trying to grow out the upper lip though. It's a work in progress.
It's looking good, man. It's looking good. I can't grow a beard. Like I've just kind of got this enormous kind of like mane of hair. That's my that's my thing this quarantine.
What's the drinking age there?
18.
Yeah, okay. Say it's 18 in Alberta, 19 for the most of the rest of the country. Even like up until my late 20s, I was still getting ID'd until I started growing up my facial hair. So I just look like a young child otherwise.
That's the wild thing. Like I've basically looked exactly the same since I was about 16. I grew taller. That was the only difference. And it like kind of I don't know, like I never really kind of ran into like the IDing thing. Like it was more kind of just I am a school kid. This is my free bus pass. Please just like don't hassle me. That was my issue.
Oh, that's great. So did you find anything interesting on your own?
So yeah, like little bits and pieces. So like Indonesia is like kind of fascinating because it's a huge swathe of like chains of islands. It's not just like one landmass. Like when you typically look at like a country or like even Japan, which is like 3 islands, this is like a huge chain of islands. So like there is this kind of a mystery already kind of implicit because of all these different islands. You don't know what the life is like. You don't know what like the vegetation is like. There's so much to kind of explore and uncover already, right? So I was instantly like, we're talking cryptids, we're talking Indonesia, cool, let's go.
It's kind of that same idea where like there's so many parts of like the ocean that we haven't discovered. It's such a vast like chain of islands, and there's so much that still is undiscovered, you know?
It's like they found those little lizards. Did you know about this? The little gliding lizards.
No.
Those little gliding lizards. They look like little tiny dragons.
Okay.
They'll kind of like fit in the palm of your hand.
Okay, and they're like flying foxes or whatever, just...
Yeah, that same kind of thing where they fly in a membrane. And they found those in Indonesia as well, and they're like gorgeous little things.
Wow. No, I didn't hear about that. I believe it. I did a lot of research into Indonesia and like how many different creatures there are there. Yeah, I definitely believe that there's some crazy flying lizard. But I figured we could start by talking about Java. So the Indonesian island where the Ahool is supposed to have lived. So Java is an Indonesian island lying southeast of Malaysia and west of Bali, and roughly half of Indonesia's population it's located on Java. So it's a lot. I think it's like millions of people live there.
It's the economic seat of the country.
Yeah.
It's like where all the big businesses and where like a lot of the foreign like kind of business people like move to. Like it's where the universities and those kind of things are. It's a very bustling.
Yeah. And Jakarta, the country's capital, is on Java as well. The climate's hot and humid throughout the year, and then there's scorching plains, and then there's the cold mountains. And I kind of thought like that's kind of like they balance each other out, right? I'm just trying to picture in my mind just how vast these islands are, you know? And there's like several islands. The minimum daily temperature averages 74 degrees Fahrenheit or 23 degrees Celsius.
Perfect. That sounds perfection to me.
But it's supposed to be like really hot.
Like sticky.
It's the humidity, I think, is what gets you. Because it's supposed to be very humid. And there was a lot of talk about these bats and how the reason that a lot of them are nocturnal is because they're covered in fur. And they would just be flying in the heat of day. Yeah. It'd be exhausting, right? It'd be easier to fly at night.
It's like they don't have feathers that they can kind of aerate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to like how birds will fly with wings or feathers, like bats use like sailcloth kind of like membrane that they're flapping around in.
Yeah.
Imagining doing that in the heat of the day and the humidity of the day would be hell. Like, because all the blood flow, like going through them constantly to kind of keep them, like to keep them like respiring is insane. Like,
yeah, I could only imagine. And I mean, like they're covered in fur. It's not like they have feathers to, fan themselves off or whatever to manage that heat. So that's why a lot of them will hunt at night. But the island has 400 species of birds, 100 species of snakes, 500 species of butterflies, but lots of different insects, lots of different animals. Another thing to note that I thought was really interesting, the island of Java is very volcanic, highly volcanic, and so like there's this the earth is really rich there because of all the volcanic I don't know, all the ash that is from years and years
volcanic.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not an English teacher, I'll say that much. But only 35 out of 112 are active. That's still a lot, though. We don't have any here.
Yeah, for real. I'm like, one is too much for me, to be honest. Like, if I had to pick, I'm like, no.
You're surrounded by 112.
Great crops.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe some lava.
Yeah, I'll go there to visit, but I'll have a way out. I'll have a plane on standby. Just in case.
Exactly.
I don't know. Have you ever seen I think it's just called Volcano. There's a movie called Volcano, and it's got Tommy Lee Jones in it.
Oh, Pierce Brosnan, right?
No, that's Dante's Peak, which is also
I'm
amazing.
Thinking of a different one. What am I thinking of?
I think you're thinking of Dante's Peak.
That's the one. Yeah, the Tommy Lee Jones was great too. I have seen Volcano. I think like coincidentally, like Krakatoa, which is when it was in Indonesia as well, the volcano which when it erupted was the loudest sound produced on Earth. Like it was heard in like countries around the world when it erupted, like that large of a report. It's insane.
Volcanoes are crazy to me. As a Canadian, we're used to the opposite, where it's like ice cold here all the time. I couldn't imagine something that would just melt the flesh right off your bones. Would melt your bones too.
The wild thing kind of being here, like in Britain, is we don't have any extremes. So like we don't have extreme colds unless you go up to like Scotland. We don't have like extreme heat because it's bloody England. Like what we do have is like constant grey. No one else can top us. Like,
I'm actually Scottish.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
I was gonna say like you're like acclimated both genetically and kind of like through growing up in Canada to the cold then.
Yeah, that's why my skin is just like white, just white as snow.
I'm built for the heat, man.
God, I glow in the dark. Actually, if you
like a certain cryptid we might get onto later.
Yes, exactly. Okay, maybe we're on the same wavelength here. So, from all the research that I found, bats are mainly grouped into two categories. So the microbats and megabats. So, as you can guess from their name, micro is the smaller ones and mega are the larger ones, but some microbats are actually larger than megabats.
Here's the thing with like a lot of like kind of biological grouping and scientific kind of like genuses and classes is it's kind of a crapshoot, and like it's a lot less kind of intuitive than you'd expect it to be. So like the way that you see like cephalopods grouped, you'd expect like other mollusks and like shellfish and those kind of things to be like quite close to them, but like genetically they're very, very, very different. In the same way that like a microbat might have the genes to be ginormous, but genetically are more similar to like the microbats than they are to the megabats, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly it, is that they're grouping them mainly on their features more so than the size of them, right? Like the way their face looks and their habits and that sort of thing. So most microbats have...
And their diets as well.
Exactly, yeah. Most microbats have different ears for echolocation, while megabats tend to have like larger eyes, which allows them to see better at night. And there's about 200 different species of these megabats. I figured that this would be a good point in our discussion to talk about the Ahool before we start going into other theories and other species of bats. So the Ahool is known for its distinctive Ahool call.
Do you want to do it for us?
Ahool! I don't know. That's my attempt at it.
Do you know what? Like, do you know what's like really kind of like making me laugh the most about all of this? It was there's that Japanese kind of like pop culture where like the crows will say "aho," saying like the character's being an idiot. Like there'll be like crows in the background going "aho, aho," like cawing, but it's calling the character in the scene an idiot. So like every time I would read that they would say "aho," I would just be like, That's all I could think about.
Yeah. I definitely didn't think about that, but I just imagine it as just the weirdest noise ever. Like, it wouldn't be something that it would be like, oh, there's a bat. It's like, what the hell? Who's this giant man screaming Ahool?
Maybe it was calling someone called Rahul.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe Raul.
There was like a large amount of Portuguese people. So like, I mean, it makes sense.
There you go.
If we debunked it and this is actually it, I'm done. I'm actually quitting. I'm gone.
That's it. It's just one guy just screaming, looking for his buddy. They're both drunk, trying to go home. The cab's here. The Uber's here. Raul.
Raul.
So the Ahool is described as having an ape-like head with large, dark eyes and massive claws on its forearms, and a body covered in gray fur. All accounts of the Ahool report that the creature has this massive wingspan, almost twice the size of the largest known bat, which I believe is the flying fox bat, 3 meters, almost 10 feet wide.
Yeah,
It's massive.
It's kind of like, was it the foxbat that has a 6 feet wide wingspan? Because that's just under my height. Because I'm like, imagine something having the wingspan of an adult man standing.
Yeah.
That's insane. And imagine that with another foot, like another meter on top of it. It's bananas. Like,
well, some people actually say that some legends say that. Well, it's crazy. It's crazy. That the flying foxbat is massive as it is, but some legends say that the Ahool is even larger than that, 3.6 meters, 12 feet long.
I'm leaving.
So if we laid down side by side, like we laid down and stretched across, that's how wide it would be. Could you imagine?
I would pack up and leave.
That's too much.
You know what I mean?
It's too much for me.
There's no way I'm staying.
And people say that this is a cryptid and there's no way this is real. But if it is real, people don't want to fucking talk about it because they leave right away. They want to run away.
And that is a logical kind of behavior that I can get behind. It's like, I could have documented it or I got out. I'll get out. That's the option.
Yeah.
There's like, there's like, people who like live next to like apex predators, like near bears or like lions or tigers and those kind of things. Like, no. If I have the option, nope. See you later. Like, I'm just gonna pack up and go. There's a story about like an Indian tiger that was chased out of Nepal because it started to eat people. Like, they got the army involved, they got like hunters involved, and they couldn't kill it, so they chased it out of Nepal. They were like, it's not our problem anymore. Like, I'm like, I couldn't imagine living next to like an apex predator like that. Hell no.
Some people claim that the flat ape-like face of the Ahool is uncommon for megabats. But as we mentioned before, right, some microbats are actually larger than megabats. So some people say, okay, well, it doesn't have the same typical features of a megabat, but that's not necessarily true. Like, I mean, it is true, but it has the features of a microbat, but it could be a megabat microbat. Does that make any fucking sense? I'm not a scientist.
Yeah. It's mega in size, micro in genetics.
Yeah. Thank you. It's good to have someone intelligent here.
I'll just translate. That's
exactly.
That's my gig this whole time.
Jump in when I don't make sense. So one thing that I found that kind of leads some credibility to the Ahool is that all these accounts, all these legends, these tales, they talk about how the Ahool, its feet are facing backwards, which is typical for bats. That's how the majority of bats' feet are. Because the way that bats work, they're not like birds. They can't take off and fly, right? They drop down 2 or 3 feet and then fly. So it's easier for them to roost with their feet backwards. That way they can just let go and drop. So most accounts, the Ahool will eat fish, but it has been known to attack humans. There's been tales of it attacking, grown men.
If geese fight us, why not this?
See, I know that slapping a Canadian goose is a felony, but I'm going to do it if it's biting me,
Mate, no, for real. Like, if it's you or the goose, you got to take that goose out, mate.
I don't know if a bitch slap would work that well on an Ahool, though. I found a few recorded sightings of the Ahool. Or I guess I should say a few recorded sightings of massive bird, bat, ape-like creatures. The Ahool was first reported by Dr. Ernest Bartels in 1925. Ernest is the son of a prominent ornithologist, M.E.G. Bartels. I don't know. Do you have 3 names? Why is it M.E.G.?
It could be a title. It sounds like one of those old, like, kind of gentry kind of titles, like M.E.G. I'm not 100% sure, though. This is why you got a Brit on.
Got to have you on here more often. I'm going to miss things without you here.
Yes. Job security.
So Bartel was exploring the Salem Mountains in Java when a giant bat-like creature flew like right over his head. And 2 years later, he saw the Ahool again. He had a camp all set up and they were tenting next to a river. and he heard the Ahool screech, and he came running out of his tent to find the Ahool because, no one believed him the first time he saw it. And he chased it. I think he chased it like 10 kilometers or something crazy. Like he just booking it after this massive ape-like bat. I don't know. I would be going the opposite direction.
He was just chasing this poor Portuguese guy who was looking for his friend. That's the worst part of all of this. He was just looking for Rahul.
Yeah, just yelling at this poor guy running down the riverbank. Rahul!
Maybe that's why he was like screaming, because he was like, "Please get this British guy away from me, Rahul! Rahul!"
Yeah, Rahul, where are you? I need help. I did find a few other sightings of like large bat-like creatures. One in 1947, at least one or two in the early 50s. And another one I found was in the mid-70s. So it's not, already, like, there's already people who have seen this thing or have reported seeing it. So, if there's more than one report from more than one person, automatically to me that starts leading a little, lending a little bit of credence or, credibility to it. For me, anyway.
Kind of, I was gonna say, kind of, sort of. Like, I'm always like, I'm never gonna be someone who's like 100%. Sure of anything. I'd rather like find some evidence or find definitive proof that something isn't real, right? But like there's so many kind of like things that it could be that isn't a giant bat, because like for the most part I feel like we're sophisticated enough in the way that we surveil things to like find a lot of like small creatures. Like usually when we find like new creatures now, it's very small creatures or it's insects, right? Like most of the big creatures in the world were found. So like I feel like for the most part it's like not impossible to like hide something of size, but like I'm not a ornithologist. I'm not a biologist. Like I don't know, man. The other thing is there's so many kind of like meteorological like kind of phenomenon that could make shadows seem way larger, make sound elongate and kind of like project further. Like the humidity in the air and like the way that clouds are will change the way that light kind of reflects. And like there's that phenomenon of like the giant men in the mountain, that thing, where it's like the way that the clouds bend the light makes the shadows gigantic. So like it's not giants that are projecting these shadows, it's people in the right place at the right time. So it could just be a bat at the right place at the right time projecting a giant shadow.
That's true. I never thought about that. Like light tricks, and yeah, because they're flying up in the sky, you could have the moon or shadows or whatever change their shape or magnify their shape. Yeah, never thought about that.
And this has been Skeptic Corner.
Don't kill me. Oh, God. So I was going to talk about some ancient legends around bats that some people have made the connection to the Ahools or other cryptids, but anything else you wanted to add? Or anything crazy that you found out about the Ahool?
I found a couple of things that were like kind of linked to the Ahool that they're like very, very similar. Like one in particular, the orang bati, which is another Indonesian cryptid, which is another bat primate thing.
Okay, yeah.
I found it quite interesting that like before like kind of Indonesia became like Indonesia, like these separate islands would have like separate cultures and they would have their own like peoples and they would have their own languages and like. So like having these separate islands have very similar like myths and kind of like cryptids is super, super interesting to me. And it's like, I wonder where it comes from. And it's like, could it just be, again, the back to Skeptic Corner, the meteorological thing that's making like bat shapes look bigger, or is it something more?
One thing that I talked about in our earlier episodes, I think it was the Halloween highlights one. So episode 2 and 3, I talked about the banshee, Irish, I believe it's Irish folk tale about the banshee. But you see that a lot of people in Newfoundland, they also have that same idea where they have the old hag or the banshee kind of similar thing, right? So I feel like it could be that idea, you know, you're kind of playing telephone sort of with like a old folk tale, and it gets more distorted as you go.
There's Neil Gaiman's book American Gods, where they take their deities and their demons with them as they travel across the world, which is like, it's such a fascinating thing because it's the way like a legend will grow and change is very susceptible to like the land it finds itself in. like the taboos and the things that we find like pleasing tend to shape our biases and the way like look at what is right, wrong, and then add into our religion and our spirituality, right? So like seeing in real time like the change from like Europe and like the old land to like America, and seeing the way that that kind of spirituality changed and grown, it's super fascinating. And it's like, of course that's happened the world over. It's just we have the luxury of like the like books and the internet to kind of to keep it alive so we can see it in real time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess since we're on the subject of spirituality, I'll just talk about this crazy bat legend.
I'm ready.
So the legends of the ancient Mesoamerican civilization known as the Maya civilization, they speak of Camazotz. Camazotz means death bat in this ancient language. And in a lot of cultures, bats are, dark omens, but in Mesoamerican culture, they're associated with night, death, and sacrifice. In this ancient Mayan, I think it's Maya, I don't know, but if in this ancient mythological text, Popol Vuh, Zatzila, it's like Godzilla but with Z's. Zatzila. This was the name of a cave inhabited by Camazotz. Camazotz is a monster with a humanoid body.
Wait.
Head of a.
Is this the bat cave?
This is the bat cave. Zatzila. So Zatzila is the bat cave and Camazotz is Batman. He looks like a human being, but he has like a bat head and giant bat wings. This is Batman.
So his name is Bruce? His name is Bruce.
He got bitten by a radioactive Ahool, and he became Camazotz. There's actually, I don't have a picture of it, but there's this really cool, it's almost like a suit. It's kind of like the bat suit, but it's basically, like the cape of bat, like the what is it, a cowl? Is that what it's called? And it has the neck thing and right? And he just pulls it on. So somebody made that, but it's supposed to be a Maya statue.
It judges you singing. It's Simon Cowell.
Oh, God, don't kill me.
Judges you singing.
Fuck's sakes. Jesus Christ.
You knew what you were getting into when you invited me on.
But it's this big, it looks like almost a silver statue, and it looks like it has jewels or something. And this artist made it thinking about Camazotz, but it looks exactly like Batman's cowl. And that's all I'm picturing is just Batman, except for without the cape, he just has giant wings. I don't know. That's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that cowl was like, yo, that's Batman if he were like a king. When he defeats all the enemies in Gotham, then he gets to wear this jeweled cowl.
There are like other world stories, like Batman the Night Batman, like back in time, and all these kind of like other world stories where I'm like, this makes sense. This fits enough. I would like to see them remake 2012, but with Batman. Just like a disaster movie with like the Mayan calendar, but Batman.
Batman turns into Camazotz and comes and brings about the destruction of the world.
Let me start the script.
I was reading this ancient text, and it was just about Camazotz and how he was one of like 4 demons that brought about the destruction of everything on Earth before, like it's called like the new sun in this Maya scripture. It's weird. I mean, it's not weird. I shouldn't say weird. It's interesting. That's a better word. Insulting a whole culture.
there's I think it's good to kind of explore like things that are like so kind of different to the way that you're brought up to, like kind of assume spirituality or like kind of how like stories should be told. And I think like the more you read about like different cultures like the Mayans and those kind of things, like the better kind of equipped you are to kind of see where people kind of come from.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like even to like a minute degree, like even if it's not like huge in their life, like there's a lot of like social cues or like how do you put it, like like references that you wouldn't understand if you didn't understand the spirituality kind of like ingrained in a culture from the base up. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, that's so true. Camazotz, this crazy motherfucker, he was said to attack his victims by the neck and decapitate them. Just like rip their heads right off. There's actually a story that I was reading about these two heroes in this Maya text, and they had both gone to hunt or, whatever they were doing with the Camazotz. They were trying to defeat the Camazotz, and they ended up having to stuff themselves into they had these dart guns, like you blow into them. And I imagine it's like a bamboo reed or something like that they would use. But it said that they stuffed themselves inside of these tubes to avoid being decapitated.
Okay.
And when they're in these tubes, one of them decides to stick his head out to see if Camazotz is still around. And Camazotz flies in and decapitates this guy, but he takes his head and he flies it up to the gods. And the gods use his head for their next game of soccer or whatever ball game they play. That's Camazotz.
Sometimes with these stories, you can't make heads or tails on them.
Very, very punny. So a lot of scholars believe that Camazotz was inspired by the common vampire bat. Like the vampire bat that's I believe it's in the US as well, where, it will latch onto an animal like a cow or a pig and it will suck its blood and fly away. Some scholars believe that it was based on a giant vampire bat that went extinct.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting. In 1988, a fossil of a vampire bat, this giant vampire bat, was discovered in the Monstrous province of Venezuela. And the fossil of this bat was like 25% larger than the largest bat known to man. It's crazy. I don't want to mess with it. You know what I mean?
I feel kind of sick. I'm not gonna lie.
Even just like seeing that when you're digging it up, like that'd be crazy.
It's like the first people who were like digging up full skeletons of like dinosaurs and like actually putting them together like that, because like we've grown up with the idea of dinosaurs with like the common knowledge that they existed, right? So we're not so surprised when we see like a big giant skeleton all together. But the first people who were like actually putting them together, how trippy must that have been? When you're like, this doesn't compute, right?
I can only imagine. You just unearth this massive creature. And then you kind of have to speculate and just think about like, well, how big actually, like what did this actually look like? Like this ginormous creature, just massive.
The scale of it.
In the year 2000, a tooth from this giant vampire bat was also found in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
So, we know that these creatures did exist at some point. It's difficult to say when they existed or even if they're like extinct, if they're not still around right now. But from all the evidence that I could gather, from all the research that people have done, it's evident that these vampire bats, these ginormous vampire bats that thrived on blood, there's evidence that they coexisted with humans at some point in South and Central America. And when you think about this bat that is drinking blood, this is a massive creature. It's large. It's a large bat. And, if you think about I don't have the exact numbers of the body, but it's got to have a massive body if it's such a large creature. With that much blood needed to satiate your appetite, it definitely, most certainly, it would have fed on larger creatures, maybe even humans.
The human digestive system is like super inefficient, like super inefficient for like the volume we eat and how often we have to eat. Most animals like have a way more like kind of efficient.
Tell me about it. I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah, like no, but like well, we need to eat way more than like a tiger does, or like a lion does, like to exist for like till the next meal. Do you know what I mean? They can survive and kind of get on with their day for a lot longer than we can, at a higher kind of athletic nature than we have to, for the most part. When you see like a bat or like in like a vampire bat, like the volume of blood it has to drink, it's like it's not as crazy as you'd think is what I'm getting at. to like satiate that bat. Although like kind of, I'm not sure how the scale up would go because I don't expect it to be a 1-to-1 thing.
That is a good point, though. When you think about the vampire bats that we know today, they're not like, bloodletting a cow dry, right? Obviously they're bad because they transfer illnesses and that sort of bloodborne diseases, but it's not like they're killing the animal with one bite. But it's hard to imagine that such a giant creature, if it did just live off blood, I think
it would eat a lot.
That it would need a significant amount. Even if it wouldn't bleed a human or a cow dry, it would still do some serious damage,
here's the second part to that. At the time of those existing, there would be bigger mammals too. Like there was mammoths and like other like larger land mammals than there was now. Like
true.
Like the kind of transition from like giant animals isn't as like kind of cut and dry. Like meteor, done, humans, small animals. There's like a kind of gradual transition period. Like there's like dodos and like mammoths coexisted, and there's like I don't exactly know what the point in history is where like megafauna kind of stopped being a thing. I'm assuming at the point of like these gigantic bats, there were other megafauna at the time too.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Yeah, didn't really think about that. Like at this point, probably everything would be bigger.
Yeah, sure.
Some scientists theorize that the Ahool may be related to another cryptid, the Congamato. Have you heard about the Congamato?
Yeah, a large pterosaur. It was one of the first things that kind of popped up when I started researching this. It's the one that used to like knock boats over, right? That's the one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so you're right. It's a large pterosaur that was living in Africa, especially or particularly Zambia, the Congo, and Angola. And you're absolutely right. Its name means breaker of boats, but some people interpret it as like overturner of boats. So yeah, and that's the legend, is that this thing would fly into the boats and like their canoes, and it would tip their canoes over, and it would attack any villagers who ventured kind of close to the water. Some locals state that this creature has been known to attack or even kill humans, and a lot of people say that they've seen these creatures actually digging up recent burial grounds and scavenging flesh and taking flesh and muscle off of the dead bodies. They said that they don't bury their dead very deep, so that's one reason why a lot of scavengers will come, scavenge the bodies. The Congamato is said to resemble a large lizard with leathery wings and a row of teeth along in its beak, and sightings have occurred since the 30s. It sounds to me like this is just that baby lizard that you're talking about earlier, all grown up.
There's very few things as terrifying as like giant lizards. They've kind of devolved into the tiny things.
Or maybe it's the reverse of that.
Yeah, like we technically have birds and like smaller lizards which are directly like kind of evolved from the dinosaurs like of yonder year, right?
Yeah.
So like, why not this? Let me just screw my skeptic cap back on. There's very few like giant things I kind of give credence to still existing without us knowing about. Just because like like we tend not to like to share our space, right, as human beings. If there's big predators, we tend to like either train them into house pets or destroy them. Like there's very like little in between ground like with human beings. Like the only like conservation is only a recent thing in history. Looking after like our big predators and like the big animals and the dangers to us by other biological animals, like that's a recent thing. That's not like something we've been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? So like, if these things existed and if they and if like people knew about them, we would have destroyed them. Like that's the way I kind of think about it. Like I don't see like humans being peaceful cohabitants, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like if you look at the history of, mankind and the effect that we've had on animals, if they're dangerous, we tend to wipe them out. One thing that I found really interesting is that some people say that these, like the Kangamato and the Ropen especially, which we'll talk about here in a second, they say that some of these creatures are said to have lived in these deep, dark caves. That leads me to the idea that maybe there's a possibility that these things, they only come out very seldomly to feed.
Mm.
And maybe that could be, you know, if it's in a very remote part of the islands and it's mainly dwelling in a cave and it only comes out on the dead of night, obviously you're raising some good points too, right? If we did know about these types of creatures, then we would take them and we would kill them, or we would put them in a giant zoo or something so everyone could, you know, travel around the world and look at them, kind of thing, right? But, you know, with the idea of them hiding in a cave, I think that kind of lends a little bit of credibility to it, or at least lends the possibility, right? You know, like it could be a possibility.
To my mind, like, I tend to kind of be a little bit more pessimistic with my view on how humans act. Like, if you look at things like even like small and like very unthreatening animals, like, you know, the eyes, like, you know, the little ones with the crazy hands and the big old eyes. There's little like, I don't know if they're marsupials or if they're actually monkeys, but
like a long middle finger,
giant eyes, right? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, like they're seen as being like evil and kind of like harbingers of the doom, and like we almost wipe them off the face of the earth because of those superstitions. Like, look at what we've done with rhinos, like kind of grinding up their body parts and like poaching them. Like, we've wiped them out. I feel like there's so many kind of like different angles to the destructiveness. Man, if we found something to be worried about, like a lot of the time, like the big animals and the big dangers that we still have around is because we like looking at them. Like, there's an inherent kind of beauty to like lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. there's like the heraldic like kind of side of those things, and like there's like a appreciation for like the cubs and those kind of things. I don't know if we would have that same feeling with like cryptids. You know what I mean?
Well, especially like a cryptid of this size that would be like extremely dangerous. There's not much cute and cuddly about a giant, you know, man-eating bat.
It would make fishing more fun.
I mean, maybe you could tame them. It could be like the never-ending story. You just jump on their back and go for a rip. That would be cool.
You figured it out. That's how we would keep them alive. That's it. We'd like selectively breed them to be able to like carry us around.
Yeah, no one would mess with you at school anymore.
Look what we did to horses. It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. See, yeah.
Leashes would be way, way tougher.
God, they would be massive. We'd have to make the streets bigger so people could land their Ahools down on the ground.
Ahool lanes. You need a whole lane.
Oh, God. Oh, God. I apologize to you, the listener, for that one. The Ropen means demon flyer. And you're right, it's a pterosaur. I don't know how to say that word properly. And it's thought to inhabit New Guinea Island. And it's like the Kangamato, has that membrane on its wings, or I guess the membrane that make up its wings, and these razor-sharp teeth that line the snout-like beak. And now we're talking about these Ahools that have this massive wingspan and these gigantic vampire bats. But I read somewhere that there are people who claim that this Ropen has 100 feet wingspan.
I'm fully in skeptic.
Is that the size of like a Boeing jet? Like how big is that? There's no way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, here's the thing. There's like, you know, going back to like the conversation earlier about like how much you need to eat to sustain size. It's not just food that you need. It's like oxygen as well. Is like the reason like we used to have like giant animals on the planet is because the oxygen content in the atmosphere was higher. It could support those life. It's why we also used to have like giant insects. We wouldn't be able to now. It's not feasible. Like, they wouldn't be able to respire enough to like keep themselves afloat, or like to be able to hunt. It just doesn't make sense. Also, like, just the way that like biology works a lot of the time and evolution works a lot of the time is if it's too big to sustain efficiently, your body will get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like if there's no sense for you, like if it costs more than it brings to like reproduce or to do the things that you need to do, the only kind of like things against that are like the sexual display stuff, like horns on insects and deer and those kind of things. But those are they're time based. They're not always there. Deer won't always have the big rack of antlers. They're there just as a mating display. 100 feet of wingspan makes no sense. Like, I don't think that would. I'm taking off my skeptic cap.
Well, don't take it off yet. We're not done. I just think that what these people actually saw was the Wright brothers testing out their first plane. That's what they saw. That's the ropin'. The reason that I made that plane joke is some accounts say that the ropin' gives off a bioluminescence. So a bright light to attract fish and stuff. And the ropin' is also, like we talked about with the Congamato, it's known to go to grave sites or scavenge off the dead.
Mm.
There are a couple people that do claim to actually have seen the ropin', though. I don't know if they saw the 100 feet wingspan or if they just saw some baby ropin'.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1944, an American fighter pilot, Dwayne Hodgkinson, which is a very unfortunate last name to have, but he claimed to come across the creature while he was stationed in New Guinea during World War II. And he said that the encounter only lasted a few seconds, but when he was in the bushes, basically a pterodactyl came down and flew in front of him. And he said it had a long snout, long appendage coming out of its back and its head, and it had these massive, massive wingspan. There's also one more sighting, 1986. This one sighting of the ropin' was actually really crazy. This man was gardening. He's working in his garden, and villagers reported seeing a massive creature swoop in and pick him up while he was in his garden. And it lifted him about 40 feet in the air, and then it dropped him. It let him go, and he fell all the way down. And when he hit the ground, he either died or he was unconscious or, he was otherwise incapacitated.
He was hurt.
Yes, I would say so. The ropin' came back, swooped in, picked him up, took him up to a tree, and then ate him, ripped him apart in front of all these villagers. Those are the counts of ropin' that I've, read about online.
At that point, you pick up the village and you leave. If, you see your buddy get picked up, thrown in a tree, and then eaten, it's time to go. I think the party's over.
How else do you fight like a giant pterodactyl? How do you fight
you
that?
You don't. I feel like sometimes you burn down everything. Everything has to.
Yeah, you just leave.
It's like nope. Nope. Although saying that, one of the things that we're kind of like the most crafty about is like figuring out how to kill things. So if they sleep in caves, we just wait until it goes to sleep. It can't use those big old wings. It's disabled on the ground. There you go.
With the description of those two creatures, the ropin' and the Congamato, both of those are more like pterosaur.
That's the word.
But those are more like reptile, like reptilian-like kind of creatures. And the one
aliens?
They could be. I don't know. Do you ever think about that? Like how some of the creatures that we have could just be
Alien
from a different planet?
In the sense of the word actually is something foreign, something different, something
true.
Totally outside of our sphere of understanding and knowledge, That's why I feel like it's more alien in that sense. Deep sea creatures are alien to us. They might as well be from a different planet because they're so outside of anything we can kind of know to expect.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There's so much that we don't know about different creatures, especially creatures in the ocean. But I was more thinking about even microorganisms. I don't know. Does anything really survive in space though? I was just thinking about meteors falling to Earth and introducing, like new microorganisms or bacteria or whatever. But I don't even know if anything would survive that kind of, in space, and then the burn up from entering the atmosphere. I don't even know.
So they things can survive in space. So
I'm not a scientist. That was just the thought I had.
Do you know
Water bears?
Water bears. Yeah, so those extremophiles, I think, is what those organisms are kind of called, where they can survive in almost any condition, like as extreme radiation or like heat or acidity. They can survive almost anything. So they took them up to space. They let them out into the vacuum of space, left them in like the cosmic radiation of the sun without an atmosphere to protect them, brought them back in the ship, and within like moments they woke up and happily started reproducing again and just got on with their lives.
Okay, so me after a beer?
Yeah, pretty much.
So with all those descriptions, they're more, like I said, they're more like reptilian-like. So the orang bati is more of a closer relation, in my opinion. Like it could be more relatable. It's more cousin-like.
There's a lineage. There's like a clear lineage.
So is there anything that you wanted to say about the orang bati since I interrupted you earlier?
Yeah. So in kind of like mythologies of like different cultures, there's like a kind of family of monsters that you can kind of see like the clear lineage between them. You can kind of understand like how the stories of like these things grow and shift and change, right? Dragons and wyvern and these kind of things. I feel like this is like one of those things with Indonesia. It's like very culturally specific thing with like the Ahool and the orang bati, where they're of the same kind of like mythological lineage, and like the kind of stories have the same roots, and they just kind of grew and changed into different things because they were from different islands. You know what I mean?
Whether or not there's like a direct lineage, they're all similar. They all have similarities. The orang bati is a Moluccan legend, and it has been frightening Christian missionaries and other island visitors since the 1500s.
I just love that sentence so much. Frightening Christian missionaries is just such a wonderful, like, of the time sentence.
Well, the reason I included it in that way is like, if you think about with this probably an asshole missionary went over there to, colonize and eradicate their culture, and he shows up and then he just pisses his pants because there's this massive creature flying around.
If it's real, I hope it was just for that,
So orang bati literally translates to men with wings. That's terrifying already. I don't want to meet any man who has wings. Well, I guess I shouldn't say anything. Some people have like webbed feet or webbed fingers. Maybe they have like webbed pits. Don't want to shame anyone. Or body shame anyone for their leathery wings.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be an interesting like mutation, because like the gradual nature that usually evolution kind of goes, but like just imagining like that whole thing just already being there, that would change everything.
Yeah.
It'd be so wild.
It would.
Also, could you imagine the sound?
Ugh. It'd sound like you're jacking off every time you walk down the street.
Just clapping.
Yeah.
It's just like everyone thinks you're giving like the round of applause. It's just like, no. I'm
just trying to get down to the store.
I just want coffee, mate. I just want coffee.
You'd have to get like custom sweaters, custom shirts made for you so you could keep your wings warm. Okay, so the orang bati, we're going to talk about this Batman later. This cryptid is found in the island Seram, which is in Indonesia in the Molucca Islands. Now, legend has it that the orang bati resembles a flying primate like the Ahool. It has black leathery wings with blood red skin and a long, thin tail. And the first encounter that was recorded was in 1987, was an English missionary, of course, Tyson Hughes, and he claimed to have an encounter with the creature. And like the Ahool, Ahool has that loud Ahool shriek. This creature, the orangbati, it's said that it lets out like a long, mournful wail. And it's been known to steal infants and children and take them off and take them back to their roosts, which is
I was
terrifying.
going to say, there's something so deeply eerie about the fact that it's not got fur, that it's just leathery skin. I don't know why, but that deeply bothers me. Like, it's just seeing something that's just skin. Like,
Blood red and flying
Thank
at you and trying to take your baby. Like a dingo ate my baby, but it was this giant bat with wings. This monkey with
wings. It could have
wings.
been a guy. Could have been a blood red, like, monkey bat.
Just a guy with a long tail pinned on his back, and he's painted all red.
Oh, God.
He's got a hang glider, and he comes in and takes your baby. So is there anything that you wanted to add about the orangbati?
No, the faster I can stop thinking about it, the faster I'm not going to be terrified.
I don't know. You were excited about them before. How about something else that's terrifying? The hammerhead bat.
These are delightful.
These creatures? Well, the hammerhead is hideously ugly. It looks like somebody took a poor little bat and like did the reverse of the Honey I Shrunk the Kids and blew it up. And then instead of like a bat's, like a cute bat face, you just take a moose, put a moose's face on there, and then give it like a sideways vagina for like a mouth. It's crazy.
If any of that sounds ridiculous, Google it. This is exactly how it looks. Like, it's nuts. There's like a certain part of this, like this bat, that kind of gives me pug vibes, where it's like, you're too ugly for me to hate you. Like, I kind of love it. Like,
yeah, it's like it's so ugly it's cute almost.
The world is then you harsh enough. I'm gonna like at least give you like a cuddle. Like, it's okay, buddy.
I don't think I would be cuddling a hammerhead bat. So the hammerhead bat is a real creature. It's not a cryptid. It's not part of cryptozoology. It's a real animal, and there's photographic evidence. It's actually like studied. So the hammerhead bat's habitat is located in parts of Africa, and it lives off a wide variety of fruits. This bat has an over 3 feet wingspan, and males are typically larger than females, and the females, just like mankind, they look a lot better than the males do.
I'll let that one sink in. I ain't got no comments.
I was waiting for it, but now
Sometimes I'm just gonna agree, you know, like.
yeah, okay, that's fair. In the daytime, it's typical of all bats, same with the hammerhead, to roost in the hot temperatures, and then at nighttime when it cools down, then it comes out and it'll fly around and go get some, num-nums to eat. Unlike the orangbati, it actually has a furry body with mostly gray fur and, tufts of white on its, the back of its head and its ears. The bat gets its name from the male's moose-like, snarling snout. It's got this massive snout with big cheek pouches and snarling lips, and it has this. The reason that its face looks like that, the reason that it has that moose-like snout, and it has a larger larynx. So the larynx allows the male to produce like a loud honking sound, and that vocalization is what attracts females.
We're back to geese.
Have you heard their honking?
No.
It doesn't sound exactly like geese. I shouldn't say that. But you're right though. It's like we've came full circle. It's this wretched honking sound. They do this thing, it's called lecking. So a lek is when these bats will want to mate, and the males will go down to like an island or like a small patch of land that has water nearby, and they will make these loud honking sounds to, I guess get the females horny, and they'll fuck on the beach.
They go to water and they honk. They're geese. They're geese.
Yeah, exactly. We've came full circle. Like I said, the females are usually like more attractive, and they closely resemble fox bats. So they don't have this hideous, disgusting face. On occasion, some of these hammerhead bats have been known to hunt and kill like chickens and other small birds. It's important to note that the largest known bat, which we talked about, the flying fox bat, also calls Indonesia home, and some flying foxes have been known to have a wingspan of 5 or 6 feet. So that's the flying bat that we've been talking about this whole episode. It's about a 6-foot wingspan.
I'm 6'1", so like I'm just a bit longer than its wingspan. That's nuts.
Oh, same. Tall buddies.
Hey, tall buddies. Hell yeah, let's go. Because of like the way like I've seen bats and I've like kind of been around bats before, like trying to scale that up in my mind is like distracting me from everything right now. Like I'm trying to like formulate normal sentences and I'm just like, this is a bat.
You know, like the majority of them fit in the palm of your hand. And here you have this one that's, its wingspan is as big as I am. Like that's crazy to think about.
Hard pass, bro. Hard pass. Like I remember as a kid there was
It's almost too much. It's almost too much.
Almost. I remember there's like a place here in England called Windsor Castle. As a kid, we went there with school and they had like this little kind of tent marquee thing, but they were teaching us about animals. And they gave us the opportunity to like hold a bat. They were like teaching us like about like facts about the bat, how it hunts, all these kind of things. And it was like a little furball with a heartbeat. It was insane. And like, I can't imagine looking up at like holding that if it could like wrap its entire body around me several times. That just, I can't fathom.
Yeah, if the roles were reversed and it was holding you instead of you holding it.
The bat looks at you like, your little spoon.
So I have a few theories that I came across about the Ahool and these cryptid creatures, but I'm interested to hear if you had any thoughts on these creatures.
I kind of feel like a lot of like kind of big mythological creatures and those kind of things are either like they're in like they're like a fable to kind of teach you something or to teach children something or like to symbolize something specifically. I feel like these are like more kind of cautionary tales to stop you wandering off into the jungle alone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like the Kongomato is like to stop you to like going into the water without being prepared, like, you know, like kind of being careful with your boat.
That's totally logical. If you look at folklore and the history of folklore, the majority of folk tales and legends and mythological legends, not only are they, you know, made to entertain and inspire people, but they're also cautionary tales. So that's completely logical. Yeah. The three main theories that I could find that most people speculate on. First one is that the creature is a pterosaur that survived the extinction age. You know, the pterosaur, the flying dinosaur, which was thought to be extinct long ago. That's one theory, is that there's actually a pterosaur that, or like a giant flying bat that people don't, you know, that hasn't been extinct or hasn't been killed off by man. I mean, like you said, it's kind of difficult to imagine that actually happening, but you know, there are still some undiscovered tribes in distant lands, right? So it could be kind of the same idea.
Yeah, for sure. Don't take anything, like, I'm gonna make this proviso right now so like no one at me. Like, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a ornithologist, I'm not a paleontologist. I'm making logical and educated guesses, but they are guesses. There is like, I want to be wrong because like I want mystery in our world and I want to like see these cool and wonderful kind of like scary and kind of fascinating creatures. Like that's awesome. Like I want the imagination to be always pushed and like find new things to like glom onto. Like it's why I kind of love these stories and why I love myths and like cryptozoological stuff. Like super into it. Like super cool, right? Logical brain, fascinated brain. They don't have like, you don't have to square the circle all the time, you know?
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. the other theory, the second theory, is that the Ahool is actually real and that it is a giant flying ape. But when I think about it, I just think about The Wizard of Oz. I'll get you, my pretty, and then she lets the monkeys fly off,
How did I not
right?
think about this entire time? Like,
That's all I think about.
mate, all I've been thinking about this whole time is, like, when do we start, building the giant robots to fight these things? That's what I've been thinking about. Like,
Yeah, well, it could be like, have you ever seen Bug's Life? Yeah, where they build that big bird.
yeah.
They build that big fake bird out of twigs and leaves. We could do that, but make a giant bat to scare the shit out of this thing.
Yeah.
But the only downside would be if it started fucking the thing that we made to defeat it. So the final theory is that the Ahool is a giant unclassified bat that lives in caves and only comes out at night and has only been spotted by a handful of. And obviously the fourth theory is that every single one of these creatures except for the hammerhead bat don't exist. Those are the few theories. My consensus.
But that's not fun.
Yeah, the fourth one isn't a very fun theory. But my conclusion, personally, I think that there is, maybe it's not likely, but there is plausibility that the Ahool is this creature and it's just undiscovered. It just lives in a remote part of the islands, and a lot of humans don't go into the deep, dark, jungles and find it. Plausible, but highly unlikely. That's my consensus.
Maybe it's just that Raoul is still out there in the glade, just waiting to be found.
It's been 100 years, and I've been searching for Raoul my whole life.
It's like, come home to us, Raoul. Come home.
And that poor Dr. Ernest is still screaming, chasing the guy, asking for Raoul, calling for Raoul.
At least he's still Ernest, though.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Why? Why did I set you up with that? Is that what you say every time you watch an Ernest movie?
Yes, of course.
Like Ernest goes to jail, and you just
like,
have all these
he's doing his
Ernest
best.
puns lined up.
The weird thing is, I've only ever seen an Ernest movie this year. Like, I've only just kind of been introduced to the Ernest series this year. Like, it's not really a thing over here.
Oh, wow.
He's a Canadian cryptid.
You know who real cryptids from Canada? Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Pray tell.
Yeah. I was waiting to see if you would actually know.
I'm furiously Googling.
I'll send you something. Bob and Doug McKenzie. It wasn't SNL. It was a Canadian SCTV. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's like SNL but Canada almost. And it was a skit that they did. And they have albums. They have
My dude,
like
I'm so
hour-long
ready.
specials. I'll have to send you some Bob and Doug McKenzie. They completely and entirely they encompass Canadian culture. Like it's too real.
Is this like one of those citizenship test things where you're gonna get quizzed about these two?
So, is there anything else that you wanted to add about the Ahool or any of these creatures that I missed?
No, you were super concise and super great about it. Nailed it.
I don't know. I kind of just get into this when I find a subject that I'm really interested in. I just have to dig as deep as I can and figure out everything about it. It's good for podcasting.
Yeah, I'm happy to be along on the journey. Like, this has been super fun.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thank you for joining me. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about your podcast? Anything that you wanted to plug? Anything cool coming up?
Yeah, sure. I'll let me quickly kind of fire off about us. So we are the Nerd Alternative podcast. We talk about all things pop culture, games, books, TV, anime, we run the whole gamut. If you're looking to find some talks about like new stuff like the Snyder Cut and the 4 Hour Shenanigans, come give us a listen. We release every Friday. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit at The Nerd Alternative. You can listen to us on all major podcast catchers.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. First guest, and he's absolutely hilarious.
Oh, my pleasure, mate. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Hello, hello, ghouls,
ghosts,
goblins,
and everything in between. Welcome to Across the Veil with hosts Emma
and Zelda. We're two amateur cryptozoologists on a mission to explore the things that lie beyond.
Beyond what?
I don't know. The veil? It just sounds poetic and mysterious.
True. Learn about cryptids, folklore, monsters, and things that are just kind of haunted.
Anything that seems a little otherworldly and strange.
Just like us. New episodes out every Thursday on all of your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Follow us on Instagram at across.the.veil and Twitter at acrosstheveil1.
We hope you join us next time.
Across the Veil.
This episode is produced by Death Hotel Creative, hosted by myself, Dr. Mystery. To view more, visit us at notwhatwesay.com or check us out on Instagram at Cabinet of Mystery or Twitter at Open the Cabinet. Please leave us a review if you enjoyed the show and let us know what topics you'd like to hear in the future. You can hit us up either on the socials or at cabinetofmystery@gmail.com. You can leave us a voicemail at anchor.fm/Cabinet of Mystery. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and please subscribe or follow for more episodes.